So here we are in typical Chicago traffic. What is up, everybody? My name is Gary. Welcome aboard. And welcome to my very first motovlog. Something I haven't really done much before, well, at all really. And this is the first one for me and the first one for this channel. And so here's kind of the deal. I'm out on my bike. I now ride a 2018 Goldwing. Something I never thought I would have owned. Never would have bought a Goldwing years ago. But I got one a couple months ago. And so the story behind that is I previously had a 2012 Yamaha Striker. Loved that bike, tons of fun. Had it for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years. And over the past several years, like happens to a lot of people, life happened. There wasn't much time to get out and ride. And it was a little upsetting. A lot of various reasons for that. Not concerned about that. But earlier this year, I finally kind of decided, you know what? Things have sort of settled down. It's time to get back out and ride. And so that's just what I decided to do this year. And so I decided part of that was, you know what, I'm gonna get a bike that I can put just a ton of miles on. And that is how I ended up with the 2018 Goldwing. Like I said before, a bike I never would have bought prior to this, because hey, I'm 40 years old. I've always seen the traditional Goldwing as the big, bulky old man's bike. And then all of a sudden, I saw the complete redesign when the 2018 came out and saw it in its bagger version and thought, you know what? That is what I need. And so here I am now. I bought it back in March. It's June now. And I've already put 1,500 miles on it, kind of breaking it in. I just got done doing its first oil change. And the idea of this whole channel and the idea of starting to do some vlogs was about getting out and riding. Something I haven't really been able to do much in the past several years. Like I said, I think all of last riding season, I'm based here in Chicago, so I don't get to ride year round, which sucks, is what it is. But last year, for the 2018 riding season, I think I probably put about 700 miles on my bike, which was really sad. It's probably the lowest year I've ever had. Typically, I like to get out and I can do, a few hundred miles in an afternoon, but just wasn't able to do it last year. So to already have 1,500 miles on this since March, despite the really crappy weather we've had here in the Midwest and really across large parts of the US, it is what it is. So it is exactly 1 week away. It is Friday, next week Friday. I am getting ready to get this bike out and stretch its legs out a little bit. I'm riding from Chicago down to Houston. So the plan for this, it's going to be about a 2,500 mile total turn till I get back home. The thinking is I am going to ride down from Chicago to Houston, through Illinois, across Missouri, into Arkansas, down into Texas, and get into Houston. And I'm going to spend a few days down there. Once I leave my route back, I'm going to take the long way back and run across Louisiana into Mississippi and catch the Natchez Trace across Mississippi through the part of Alabama and up into Tennessee, and then eventually cross over into Kentucky, into Indiana, and back into Illinois. So I want to cover a lot of ground on this trip. I'm really looking forward to it. This is going to be the longest solo trip for me. Previously, my longest solo trip I think was about 1,100 miles total mileage, so this one's gonna be about 2,500. I'm really looking forward to it, to get some time out on this bike and spend some quality time riding. And I want to take everybody with me. I want to capture some good videos, some good pictures. I've always been into photography. I've gotten more into video in recent years, so yeah, so here we are, and that's kind of my plan. And I hope I can take some of you with me, get some of your feedback, maybe some of your comments, or maybe even some of your guidance. I mean, obviously there's people that do this a lot more than I do, and so if any of you out there have any feedback for me, I am more than happy to take that information and run with it. Right, so I'm out here testing out some equipment. I just did the first service on the bike. I just want to get it good and hot because this is actually the DCT version, so there's initialization that you can do. Now that it's got some mileage on it and clean oil, I want to do that. I'll go ahead and smooth out some of the shifting a little bit. Even though it shifts like a dream. I never in a million years would have thought that I would own an automatic motorcycle, and I almost got this one in the 6-speed manual version and ended up deciding, you know what, screw it, let's try the DCT. And you know what, you could not pry this thing out of my hands at this point. It's a 7-speed, it's very efficient, it's incredibly comfortable, and if you've got to unfortunately get stuck at some point in traffic on a motorcycle, an automatic is fantastic. And to be honest, the DCT is capable of shifting faster than just about any rider. I think even race riders would tell you that. And that's why they started putting dual clutch transmissions on race cars and some of the race bikes. So there it is. So this is my first motovlog, and hopefully the first of many. And on this trip, I'm hoping I can take all of you with me, and we're going to see what this whole thing's all about. I'm hoping it's going to be a pretty good time. If it's not, I'm sorry. You'll be able to skip those videos. But I hope it's not. Let's hope for the best. Alright, so this is really just a quick test ride. Testing out camera equipment, audio equipment. I'm playing around with some stuff with the navigation system on the bike, even though I don't actually plan to use the internal navigation system for the Texas trip. So I just took a quick ride up here to Skokie Lagoon, so it's just north of Chicago. Quick, easy ride. Kind of sort of scenic. It's nothing amazing. Let's be honest, there's no real exciting riding right around the city of Chicago. You kind of got to get outside the city. But I just needed something really quick, so here I am. I've got you with me. Enjoy the ride. Yeah, so I think it's safe to say I'm going to stick with my Garmin for the heavy-duty navigating. The navigation system on this bike, it's good for getting you around town. Like if you've got stuff to go do, you need directions getting to a friend's house, finding a store, or getting to a restaurant, whatever, that's great. This thing will do the job. It'll get you there, no problem. If you are looking to do some sort of very specific routing, which most motorcyclists do because there's special roads that they want and there's certain roads they want to avoid. So for that purpose, yeah, this thing's honestly not that good. Just about any Goldwing rider on the 2018s and 19s will gladly tell you that. And so that's why I'm not the only one that's got a mount here so that I can put a Garmin Zumo on there. Most other people have done the same for the exact same reasons. So that's kind of the deal with the navigation. A little disappointing. Maybe at some point Honda will make some updates to the system. They've already made some advancements to it, just because people hated it so much and there were so many complaints that Honda went ahead and they issued 2 separate updates, one towards the end of 2018, another one in, I think it was like January of this year, and it fixed a couple of things. Not a big deal, but hopefully they will continue to make some advancements to it and fix some of those issues so that it can be more of a touring GPS, because right now it's really just sort of get me from point A to point B, and I just don't really care how you do it. A touring GPS really needs to be able to handle very specific routes and like via points, not necessarily a waypoint, but a via point to make sure that you're staying on a very specific route. So we'll see if Honda is able to pull that off. You know, really, if they were smart, they really should have partnered with Garmin in the first place when they did the OEM navigation system. Yeah, so probably I think the biggest problem that I'm seeing with this system is that it just sort of reorders the waypoints as it sees fit, and so that can seriously change your route. I mean, if you were doing a big long sort of travel route, I guess that probably wouldn't be so much of an issue. because your waypoints would be far enough apart that it would make absolutely no sense in its logic to order them any differently. If you're doing a shorter ride, kind of like I did with this test ride, because the waypoints really aren't that far apart, there's different creative ways that you can connect those dots. And so that's basically what the GPS has been doing, is reordering them and connecting the dots however it sees fit. Which I guess under some circumstances that may be fine and you may not really care. But in my case, as you can see on my screen there, this is just stupid. This was supposed to be a nice big circular route, and now it's just sort of a half-ass route that's taking me to the middle of nowhere, which is not where my intended destination was. So here we are. Kind of ridiculous. Yeah, I had no intentions of being in this little neighborhood whatsoever. But the navigation system, in its infinite wisdom, decided that this is where we were going to go. Okay. Whatever you say, sweetheart. Following you. Well, isn't this a nice scenic tour through somebody's neighborhood? I don't know anyone that lives over here. Alrighty. So last season on my 2012 Yamaha Striker, I only got about 700 miles in. It was a very disappointing year for me riding wise, and it really was kind of the year prior to that. I mean, there were 2 or 3 years where I really didn't get out much at all, and it wasn't because I didn't want to. I really wanted to, but like a lot of people, life just got in the way. There were a lot of things that just prevented that from happening, and admittedly a little bit of that was the bike. Simply because, like, one of the reasons I got the Goldwing is I wanted something that was highly functional. My Striker was a ton of fun. I love riding that bike. I miss it a little bit. But the problem was, it's really just not a functional day-to-day kind of bike. Like, if you want to go out and ride a motorcycle, it is fantastic. But if you've got to live life and go run errands and do kind of the day-to-day chores getting around town, it's really not good for that. You can't really carry much stuff. You gotta, pick out things that you're going to use wisely, make sure that they can be accommodated on the bike, and all those just cause all kinds of issues. And so that was always kind of my problem. Like, oh, I gotta go do this, I can't take the bike. Oh, I gotta go to this place and I gotta bring this stuff, and oh, because of all this stuff I can't bring the bike. They either had to fit in my tiny little saddlebags that were like rock tumblers that pretty much destroyed anything that went in them, or I had to wear a backpack and do that sort of thing, and that was all well and good, but you can only carry so much stuff. So the Goldwing, on the other hand, and I didn't get the Goldwing Tour, which has the trunk and all that stuff on it. I'm more of a bagger person. I just can't do the big full-size Goldwing. This thing is a pack horse. Like, I can carry tons of crap on this thing. There is nothing but room. What doesn't fit in the saddlebags, I can strap tons of stuff on that back pillion, and I've got the cargo carrier back there too. Like, I can carry huge bags or boxes and containers or whatever I got to do. I can carry it on this bike, and that's amazing. So that was one of the huge selling points for me when I bought the Goldwing. The other one, of course, is that the new Goldwings look really cool. They don't look like the old man bikes that the old Goldwings were. The old Goldwings that I never would have touched. I still, when I have to tell people, oh, I got a new bike, naturally, oh, what did you get? Oh, I got a new Goldwing. You got what? That's an old man's bike. Most people don't realize how dramatically different they are since they've been redesigned. The new Goldwings really kind of feel more like a sport touring bike, which is perfect. I'm all for that. And it's got all the space of a pack mule. So that combination works out really good for me, and I've been incredibly happy with this bike so far. In its first 1,300 miles, I got the dual clutch transmission, which was another thing I never thought I'd have. I actually almost did not get it on this bike. I was going to go with the 6-speed manual, but I decided, you know what the hell? If I'm going all the way with a big high-end touring bike, let's see what this DCT is all about. And quite honestly, so far, I am loving the shit out of this thing. Particularly, I live in Chicago. Traffic sucks. It's a part of life. If you've got to get stuck on a motorcycle in traffic, a dual clutch transmission is the way to go. It saves you from all that constant clutching and shifting. You can just sort of sit back, relax, and just twist the throttle and go. So it's been a great experience so far. I'm really looking forward to getting it out on this 2,500 mile ride down to Texas and back. I think it's going to give me plenty of opportunity to test out a lot of stuff with this bike, even continue to get used to riding it and doing long tours like that, because I'm really hoping this is the first of one of many long trips that I can do with this bike now that I've really got the full ability. Like I said, I did some longer trips with the Striker, and I had a hell of a time. I loved those trips. I had a great time. But it had to all be done very carefully. With this, hey, I can just throw a bunch of shit on this bike and let's roll. It gives me a lot of opportunity. And quite honestly, the wind protection that the Goldwing provides me, I never would have known. I guess I was just ignorant. Like, I've ridden some road glides and some street glides in the past. I haven't owned them, mind you. I've like rented them when I've been out on vacation and taken them out on day trips and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously the wind protection on those bikes is good, but I've never ridden it long term enough to realize what a difference it truly makes. So like on the highway now, I've got my windscreen extended all the way up, and between that and the fairing on the front, I get great wind protection, which is a huge deal over the course of a long ride. I mean, any of you that have done long rides like this, at the end of the day, you just feel beaten to hell from being battered by the wind all day long. Getting that wind in your hair and getting beat by the wind is great in the short term, and I still love doing that. And when I do, I pop this little windscreen down and I just get beaten as much as I want on the highway. But if you're going for the long haul, it really gets tiring. It takes a toll on your body. So being able to have that wind protection is great. The other thing I learned, I picked this bike up in the middle of March, and here in Chicago, it was 38 degrees that day. The sun was out, thank God, but it was 38 degrees. And that didn't stop me. Between popping up this windscreen and turning on the heated grips with this bike, I was actually completely comfortable. I had a couple layers on with a full face helmet and the heated grips and the wind protection that this bike affords me. I was actually like, I was not in any rush to get off this bike. I could have kept riding all day long. I was shocked. So now that means that my riding season is actually extended. Whereas on the Striker, you are just out in the open on that thing. And that's a ton of fun, like I said, if that's the kind of riding you're looking to do that day. But when it's in the 30s and 40s, even with layers on, it gets pretty cold pretty quick. And your hands just go numb from the cold. Doesn't matter what gloves you're wearing. I tried it all. And with this bike, between the wind protection I can get on my hands from the mirrors and the cowling, and having the heated grips on with a nice pair of insulated gloves, buddy, I am good to go with this thing. So I'm looking forward to being able to do some good fall rides and not being so concerned about it getting colder. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So now that I am rolling into city traffic, I will see you guys later. See ya.